It's the one thing that we all have, the mind, right? But it's the one thing that we don't have a manual for. We buy a blender, we get a manual. Our iPhone comes with a manual. We get a car and it has a manual. Nobody teaches you how to use the mind. There's no manual for the mind. So this, I think, is one of the most essential things in making progress in our life, is really understanding how our mind works. It's the one thing that we have to live with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have no choice. Imagine if most of you slept 8 hours a day, which most of you don't. You slept and you were awake 16 hours a day. In the 16 hours you practice your awareness just randomly moving from one thing to another, to another, to another. All day practice being distracted. What would you be good at after 6 months? You did the 16 hours a day, you just allow your awareness to jump from one thing to another, to another. I'll tweet right now, I'll switch to text messaging, then I'll go to email. Oh, my phone's ringing, so I'll answer the phone. And then somebody's speaking to me, so I'll have 2 conversations at one time. And I'll just do this 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you get it being good at distracted. After 1 year, you're an expert at being distracted. After a year and a half, they'll invite you to give keynote talks on being distracted. You're so good, you practice 16 hours a day. So the same works for the opposite. If you practice being concentrated 16 hours a day, what would you become good at? You become good at concentrating. And all it takes is practice. By just doing one thing at a time. Keeping your awareness on one thing at a time. And you integrate this into everything that you do in your life. So the best way to do it is pick a few opportunities in your everyday life. For example, we all speak with people. When I speak with somebody, I give them my undivided attention. I keep my awareness on them, and the conversation is really brief. Why? Because we're concentrated. We're not being distracted. A 10-minute conversation normally just takes 3 minutes because you're just so focused. I define concentration as the ability to keep that awareness on one thing for a prolonged period of time. So if I can keep my awareness on Eric and not drift away and think about the wedding, or drift away and think about the vacation, or what I'm going to do later, then I'm concentrating on Eric. Every time it drifts away, I bring it back. And the more I practice this, the more I practice concentration. So concentration is the ability to keep your awareness on one thing for a prolonged period of time. And that's a very simple definition of concentration. How do you get better at concentration? You practice this. You practice this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's the only way to get good at it. And what's the best way to practice it? The best way to practice it is to integrate it into everything that you do in your life. Not to meditate 10 minutes in the morning. It doesn't work. You really need to look at your life the same way a sprinter in the Olympics looks at his life. You've all heard of Usain Bolt, the man that won the gold medal twice, 2 Olympics in a row, broke the world record. I don't know anything about him, to be honest. But if I was looked at him, he obviously sprints, he practices running, probably does a lot of long distance, he probably does a lot of stretching as well, I'm sure he gets massages. He looks like he eats the right kind of food. Drinks the right amount of water, takes vitamins. His whole day is so disciplined. For what? To prepare him for 9.57 seconds. I think that's what the world record is, right? For 100 meters, 9.5 or 9.57 seconds. His whole day is preparing him for that short time, not the other way around. A lot of people say, you know what, I need to be more concentrated. So you know what, I'm going to meditate in the morning, I'll sit down for 2 minutes. Okay, now I'm Zen master. And the remaining 23 hours and 58 minutes, they just go about being ordinary and crazy. How does that work? How would you change? It's not balanced at all. So if for 23 hours and 58 minutes you were not being concentrated, you allowed your awareness to jump from one thing in your mind to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, in an uncontrolled way, what would you be good at? And out of a prolonged concentration comes the wonderful power of observation. You just become more observant, and when you become more observant, you see solutions quicker and you solve things quicker. And it's a wonderful, powerful feeling when somebody is concentrated on you and not being distracted. So the best way is to integrate it into your everyday life. You're speaking with your spouse, give her or give him your undivided attention. So develop your awareness, integrate it into everything that you do in your life. And that's the best way you become good at. The next thing we need to develop is develop your will. Will is really important. Will is almost like a muscle in your mind, and you use that to pull and control your awareness and take it from one area of the mind to another. And the will needs to be developed, and same like concentration, if you don't cultivate the will, it doesn't grow. And this is something that really needs to be cultivated. How do you develop the will? There's 3 very simple ways to develop the will. 1 is you finish what you begin. 2 is you finish it well beyond your expectation, no matter how long it takes. 3 is you do a little bit more than you think you can do. All of those things require effort, and effort is will. It's so much easier to start a project than to finish a project, right? When you start a project, you're feeling creative, you're feeling inspired, you're full of energy. At the end of the project, you go, whose idea was this? So it requires tremendous amount of will to finish, and every time you complete something, you develop a little bit more will, and you have that muscle. And will is an amazing thing to develop, because once you develop will, that same will you can use in every aspect of your life to keep your awareness on one thing at a time, to finish projects, to see things through to the end, anything you want. The best way to develop will, bring it into your everyday life, into everything that you do. Give you an example, the way I integrate it into my everyday life, I try and finish what I begin. So for example, going to sleep. I sleep every night, so I put on my pajamas, I floss, I brush my teeth, I go to bed, I sleep, I wake up in the morning, I make the bed. Why? Because I'm finishing what I start. You know how the subconscious works, and you know how to program it using affirmations with a clear concise choice of positive words, clear visualization, and a corresponding feeling. Feeling being the most important component because it's the actual energy that attracts. Then you can bring into your life anything you want.
Do you have a certain set of affirmations that you do? Do you do them every morning?
I do, yeah. I do them every morning and night. I have one affirmation for my personal life, one for my family life, and one for my business.
Just a single one, or a list of them?
A single one.
A single one,
yeah. Because you want to train, you want to program the mind, right? So if your affirmation's like a page long, it's very hard to shape it. So it needs to be concise and positive. And
then visualize that concise thing in however you want it manifested.
Right. So for example, if you do this show, your affirmation is, I will interview fascinating people that can give great insights to my listeners. And I just made that up on the spot. Okay. You'll come up with something, right?
Right.
But it's concise. And then you visualize yourself sitting here with your crew, the cameras, talking to different people. Obviously, you can't see what they look like because you don't know who they are, but just visualize a person sitting here, maybe a faceless person, long hair, bald, markings on his head.
Right.
And then,
robes,
right, beads.
Right.
So that's your visualization, and now you're feeling. What does it feel like? And the feeling you can know because you've interviewed so many people. How do you feel after an interview? Do you walk away and go like, wow, that was really insightful, I learned a lot, this is wonderful. Take that same feeling and hold that feeling in your mind as you repeat that affirmation with a visualization.
Okay.
Creates a pattern in your subconscious that starts to vibrate at that frequency. And you might have interviewed hundreds of people, and there's some interviews that you go like, oh, that wasn't that great. But there's some that you go like, this was probably one of my best. Take the feeling from your best interview and insert that into your affirmation. Because now it's going to be vibrating at that feeling, and then you'll start attracting anything of a similar vibration towards it.
Okay. Now, there's the movie The Secret that says all you have to do is think about it and it shows up on your doorstep. Do you subscribe to that, or do you subscribe to there's got to be a lot of action on the top of that?
Oh, I think there has to be a lot of action. I haven't watched the movie or read the book, but I do believe that my guru had a beautiful saying where he said, where awareness goes, energy flows. So if you put your awareness on something, that's where your energy is flowing, and that's what's going to start manifesting in your life, but it needs to be followed through with action. And I think a lot of people just think about things and have cop-out lines like, the universe will manifest it for me. And I'm like, that's the biggest cop-out ever. Do the work, manifest it yourself. Don't wait for a handout, go out there and create it. But put energy into it, right? So I always tell people the way to look at energy is, look at energy the same way you look at water. If I took a watering can and I watered a garden bed, what would grow, the weeds or the flowers? They both grow, right? The water doesn't know how to discriminate between the weeds and the flowers. Energy is the same way too. If you put energy into something, it'll grow whether it's positive or negative. And the way to put energy into something is to put your awareness on it. So where awareness goes, energy flows. You keep your awareness on something, that's where your energy is flowing. And if your energy is flowing there, it starts to manifest in your life. Regardless if it's positive or negative, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is keep your awareness there. So if you can think about something long enough, over and over again, energy starts to flow there, it starts to manifest in your life. But you also need to do the work. I can't just sit here and just think about it all day. You need to also then support it with actions.